What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel this week. My name is Priscilla. I am a Nigerian women's wear designer based in London. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this really cool skirt design that is a pencil skirt, but it has a really nice flounce detail that goes from the front across the hip and to the back of the skirt. I developed this design from my basic skirt pattern, which I have done I think few tutorials ago, possibly last year, and I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen and down below. So if you haven't seen it already, make sure to watch that one before you come back here, because it will make more sense, I promise. So if you'd like to see how this pattern is made, make sure to keep on watching. Join the DIY fam if you haven't already. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is click that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and you'll be the very first to know whenever I have new videos up on the channel every single week. Give this video a thumbs up if you'd like to see more pattern tutorials, and without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. I'm going to be using the following tools to create this skirt design, and I've laid them here nice and flat. The first being my basic skirt block, which I've done in a previous tutorial, and I'm going to be linking down below for anyone that hasn't seen it yet. We're going to be needing the front and the back to develop into this skirt for this tutorial. I also have my paper and fabric scissors, tape measure, my marker pen, my pattern master, as well as my set square to help me draw all of my necessary lines. I've also gotten myself some calico because I plan on testing this pattern towards the end of this video, and I have my trusty old roll of pattern paper, and I'm going to be needing that. So please watch the basic skirt tutorial if you haven't already, because I'm going to be working from these blocks and going on to develop my design. But because I want the skirt to be a bit more penciled or tapered around the hem, we're going to be adjusting the skirt pattern for this particular skirt design. So I've gone ahead and I've duplicated my front and my back skirts, and around the hem I have taken out an additional 2.5 centimeters just to make it, fit a bit more snug around the hem or around the knee, depending on how long your skirt is. Mine ends around the knee, so it's going to have that really penciled and fitted silhouette when I have it on. So I did that for the front and for the back, and I'm going to go ahead and plan my skirt design. So because I want the flounce to sit in between the front and the back all the way around the side, I'm going to be marking 16 centimeters in from the center front along the waist and hemline, and I'm going to go to my side seam and mark 10 centimeters down from the waist down the side, and connect those 3 points together to have that front curve. So I'm going to connecting the hip and the hem points just with a straight line using my pattern master, and then I'm going to draw a curved line using this edge of my pattern master, connecting that 10 centimeter drop to the hip line, because I want the flounce to be inside this curved seam here. So I'm just adding a notch because you have to trace out panel 1 and panel 2 and fit the flounce in between that seam that we just made. So I repeated the same thing for the back, going ahead to mark my 16 cm points along the hip, the hem, and 10 cm down the waist, and connect them using my marker pen and my pattern master, and that would give us a total of 4 panels. So you need to trace out these 4 panels separately, because that will give you room to connect points together, and you only need to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance along the curved end, sort of the middle seam in the front or in the back, because we already had a seam allowance added all around the basic skirt that we started to work with. So these are my panels here. You will need to cut 2 for the back and the front sides. You need to cut 1 for the front if you're going to be cutting it on the fold. I need 2 for the center back pieces, so when everything fits in together you have one full skirt with your flounce pattern, which we're going to be making later on in this video. I also added an additional 2 cm hem allowance and ensured that the edge of the side seam curved back in such a way that when you fold up the hem of the skirt, that edge of the hem would fit the edge of the skirt like so. So to do this, you just need to fold your pattern upwards and trace that slanted edge so you have the same effect on the hem allowance as well. So next up, we're going to be making the flounce pattern, and the first thing you need to do is to cut yourself some fresh pattern paper, and we're going to trace off the curve on the front. So this curve that divides the front panel into panel 1 and 2, you just need to trace out that curved line. Make sure to transfer all of your notches because you're going to be needing them later on. So I'm just going in here with my pattern master, my marker pen, to connect my dash lines together, ensuring that everything is nice and clear and you can really see what I'm doing. So once that is done, I am going to take this out and decide how wide I want the flounce to be along the side. But remember to slant the line outwards because you want the flounce to protrude a little bit outwards on the side of the skirt, and then you can either decide to have it the same length at the bottom or have it a bit narrower like the 8 centimeter I'm using here, and then connect those 2 points together like so. So you can either do it this way and follow the way I'm doing, or you can draw this piece of pattern paper on a folded edge, so when you open it up you have one piece of flounce that goes from the front all the way to the back. So what I did here was I just folded my pattern paper and added a bit extra so I can double up on the other side of the pattern to make the back curve. So I'm aligning that side seam edge of the front to that of the back, and I'm going to trace off the curve that divides the back panel into 3 and 4, and I'm transferring my notches as well so I can tell what side is the front and what side is the back. So once I've traced off that curve, I'm going to join the dash lines together using my pattern master and marker pen, and remember to make the bottom narrower if you want, or make it longer. I just decided to work with a narrower bottom of 8 centimeter and a wider side of 16 centimeters, so there is that sort of cascading effect when you stitch this into your skirt. So I'm just going in here to finish up any other dash lines I have, and this is what the flounce should look like. So I'm just going in here to smoothing out the edges of the side on the top and on the bottom, so it's a nice straight curve and there are no pointy or awkward edges. And once that is done, you need to remember to mark what side is the back and what side is the front, so when things are cut out and fitted in place, everything just matches correctly. So this is what the flounce pattern looks like right now, but I want it to have even more volume, so we're going to be slashing and spreading this pattern piece. I know how much you guys love to slash and spread things like I do, so I'm just going to grab my tape measure, and because I want all the panels to be equal, I'm going to be marking 5 centimeter points starting from this side seam edge here, and I'm going to do that down the front and down the back, ensuring to do it on this inner side because that's the side you want to add volume to. The side on top, which is a wider curve, is what would fit into the skirt, and this side about putting the 5 seam points is where you want to really spread out and be more open. So I'm just going in here to draw diagonal lines from my 5 cm marks to the edge of the top edge of this flounce pattern like so, doing it all the way around, and along these lines is what we're actually going to cut open. So I've grabbed my paper scissors and we're going to be cutting along these lines, cutting really closely to the edge, because the closer to the edge you cut, the easier it will be to open the pattern, open the panels later on when it's time to spread out the panels on fresh pattern paper. So I'm just cutting up my last piece of panel, and I'm going to grab myself some fresh pattern paper, a really wide one, because the shape that this thing had later on was actually very unique. So I'm going in here and I'm putting my fresh pattern paper underneath, and I'm just taping down my first panel like so, and then I'm going to be spreading the panels by 5 centimeters. You can decide to spread yours a bit more. Just know the more you spread it, the more dramatic the flounce is going to be on the side of the skirt. So as I'm spreading, I'm taping down to ensure that nothing moves and to ensure I have one full pattern piece when I'm actually done. Once I've spread all of my panels, it's time to add seam allowance. So I'm going to be adding a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around. Just remember to transfer all of your notches, because when you cut this pattern on fabric, you want to be able to know what side fits where. So I'm adding a 1 centimeter seam allowance on the bottom, on the inner side, and on the outer side. And as you can see, the shape of the pattern almost looks like the female uterus, which is actually really funny and unique, but that's just how it turned out. So I'm just using my pattern master all the way around. Because of the shape it has, you just have to take your time and do it in several goes. You can't really get one full curve in one take. But once that is done, I'm just going in here to add my grain line, which is in this direction, like so. You would need to cut 2 pairs if you want the edge of the flounce to be nice and properly finished. But because this is a sample, I'm just going to cut one when I'm testing this pattern later on. So I've cut out my pattern piece, cutting along the 1 centimeter seam allowance edge, and this is what the patterns should look like. You should end up with 4, and by the time you cut out all of the pieces, you should have a whole set to make the skirt design. So I've gone ahead and I've cut out my pattern pieces in calico just to test and check for errors, and we're going to be stitching things up together just to see how this actually turns out. I'm just as curious as you are. So the way this is going to work is you have to sew the side panels for this side piece here that's joining the side of the front and the back along the side seam, joining the side panels of the front and the back along the top, and before fixing the flounce. So here I'm going to pin together the top or middle pieces, which is the larger fabric piece that you can see here, and I'm going to pin them along the side seam and sew it together up on the 1 centimeter seam allowance. Don't forget to sew up your darts, because this would affect the fit of the skirt when you try it later on, either on yourself, on your client, or on the mannequin. So I'm just going to take these pieces to my machine and sew on a 1 centimeter seam allowance using a normal straight stitch. It doesn't really have to be tight and secure. This is just to check for errors on the pattern. So I'm going to sew up the side piece of the front and the back together, as well as the top piece, as well as my front and back darts. So once that is done, I gave everything a quick press just to relax my seams and to make my life so much easier before going ahead to sandwich my flounce all along the side of this particular seam here. So the notches would make your life so much easier because you know what side of the flounce goes where. The one with 1 notch goes in the front, the one with 2 notches goes in the back. So here I'm just ignoring the edges because we don't really need to finish everything up nicely because we're just testing right now, and I'm just pinning together my 3 layers in place. So that's my top, my flounce, and my bottom layer, matching all of my front, mid, and back notches in place, securing them with pins. So by the time I'm done, I have one whole thing that I can take to my machine and stitch together. But this is what it should look like relatively at this point. Because the flounce has curly or curved edges, you would have to stretch it out to fit the straight seams that the side and the center panels of this skirt has. But once everything has been sort of stretched out and matched, it should be fairly easy to stitch. But I have to say, when you're stitching, don't actually rush yourself because the flounce piece itself has a curved edge, so you have to keep going back to readjust, rearrange, just to ensure that everything fits nice and neatly. So once that is stitched up, this is what the skirt should look like. Just remember to give it a press. It's just everything just looks nicer when you press it. It's like relax all those seams and it just looks way more professionally finished. So this is what the skirt design looks like. This would look so nice with a fabric that has a lot of stability because the flounce would stand really well. Or if you want something more fun and flowy, then you can use a softer fabric. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. The same, if you did, please give it a thumbs up, comment all of your thoughts, suggestions and ideas down below, and until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.